Mhm.
So that's another thing that people say is I don't think people, can you explain how strong cortisol is? Because I don't think people understand, for example, with fasting, how much cortisol you could release, and that might not be the best thing. Like, how do you know if it's good for you,
Right.
if it's not for you, if you're really, what do you do to explain
Well,
cortisol? The whole
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And I think what we can do at one time could work really well, and what we can do at another time in our life could not. Right. And so this is, again, this whole intuitive, really, we have so much, um, so many layers of misinformation and maybe even some denial, like self denial, that we aren't in tune with what's really happening to our body. And I was that way with dairy. Number one, I didn't want to get rid of dairy. I'm like, it's
No,
part of my culture. I need feta cheese. It's
the
in
dairy is the
everything Middle
biggest
Eastern.
temper tantrum anybody ever has. I call it the temper tantrum because they get
Yes.
upset when they cut out processed sugars and grains, but they're like, I get it. I've heard enough about carbs. I get it. But when you say it might be dairy, they're like, no, over my dead
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. But wait, dairy's keto. I'm like, I
Yeah.
know. And it's full of hormones, and it's really full of disruptors, and there's no other species that eats another species milk. So why are we doing it? And it's true. And there are better forms than others, but yeah, big temper tantrum for that. And just figuring out where, what is good for you, like what works for you. And so with cortisol, and really need to understand cortisol, because it is affecting our nation right now. It is affecting the hormones of our nation. So cortisol is one of our steroid hormones. It's our natural anti-inflammatory, like you were to get a steroid shot, cortisone shot. This is cortisol. Our body is designed to increase cortisol when we are anxious, when we are attacked, when we're fearful, and when there's inflammation in our body. Our body is going to produce this cortisol. Cortisol is going to create a stream of glucose. Now you've got rapid food and energy to every cell in your body, especially your brain, which is the organ that soaks up the most glucose, right? We're going to fuel you so you can respond to that attack. You can, and in the cortisol, we can douse that inflammation. If you get stabbed while you're running away from your enemy or fighting, you're not going to feel it. We're on it,
Right.
right? We're going to work on it. And that's how our body's designed. But it's not designed for us to be secreting cortisol while we're sitting on our couch watching TV,
In
drinking
the
a
middle of a
glass of wine
pandemic, stressed
in the
out,
middle of a
not knowing
pandemic.
what's going on.
And cortisol is made from progesterone and pregnenolone. So these are
Oh,
mother
shit.
hormones that
Yeah.
are, all our other hormones are derived from predominantly cholesterol. So if we're taking a statin, we could be reducing all our other hormones. And it's been shown that statin medication in men decreases testosterone. I'm sure it does in women. It just hasn't been studied that way. And
We don't
so
study
because
women. What are you, crazy?
why study women? It always throws a curveball
I
in.
know. They're
Just
too
costs money.
complicated.
Yeah. So we need more women
Mhm.
scientists to study women, just like we have now
STEM,
more
STEM,
women
STEM, STEM.
physicians. Yes, yeah. And so we're really excited about that. Um, uh, working with STEM too, but cortisol is derived from progesterone and pregnenolone, and when we are, and the same estrogen, testosterone, DHEA are all derived downstream from progesterone and pregnenolone. So when we're stressed, cortisol is taking away our supplier for our reproductive hormones. So here it is producing this incredible response, and thank goodness for it. When we need it, we want to be able to use it, but mostly we don't need cortisol on a daily basis. We need it to wake us up in the morning, fight
Right.
inflammation here and there in our body, but not to be on constant drive. That's everyday trauma that can cause a autonomic trauma response, post-traumatic stress. And I see that. And when that happens, when cortisol is a predominant hormone in our body, our hormone of love and connection, oxytocin, is down. So cortisol goes up, we have to react. We're reacting based on fear. Our oxytocin, our hormone of love and connection, goes down. No time for that, right? But so when cortisol is up for a long time, it also, your system, that our protective system, let's say, will say, okay, cortisol, you are frying us out. I'm shutting you down. And so cortisol is suppressed, secretion is suppressed, and oxytocin is low at the same time. So
Oh,
what do we feel? We feel disconnected. We feel isolated. We
you
see
feel
people we
sad.
know
Yeah.
and we don't want to connect with them. We have this oxytocin cortisol disconnect. And it's the physiology of divorce. It's the physiology of burnout. It's the physiology of depression. It is an isolation and loneliness. It is that physiology. So that's how powerful cortisol is. That's why, when I say that there's a lifestyle, keto green is a lifestyle because it's increasing oxytocin, decreasing, managing cortisol, improving our own natural hormone production as naturally as possible, and working with my mother nature and not against it. And so that's cortisol is destructive, not just to the body over time, but to your relationships.